Hi, this is Brian Russell with Walking and Talking Spirituality, and today I'm out thinking about the relationship between courage and fear, especially in the times that we find ourselves in. And when I think about courage, the passage of scripture that keeps coming to my mind is the call that Joshua receives from God right after Moses has died. And in Joshua 1:1-9, there's 3 times, just in those 9 verses, God says specifically to Joshua, be strong and courageous. And friends, I think that's a good word for our day, because courage is the key that unlocks the door to the future of God's dreams. Many philosophers and thinkers over the years have noted the real power of what courage does in our lives. So Aristotle, C.S. Lewis, others have noted that courage is the virtue or the character trait that makes all the other positive character traits possible. Because we don't have courage, when we get to those tough times in our lives, we're not going to be able to have love, we're not going to be able to show peace, we're not going to be able to have faithfulness. All of those kind of things depend on a sense of what we're going to have when we have courage in our lives. And so we need to think about, how do you cultivate courage? Because the opposite of that is really fear. And think about the time that we find ourselves in. We have people anxious about unemployment, and that's a real concern right now. Worry about getting sick, worry about their loved ones getting sick, worry about their loved ones losing their jobs. I know many pastors who are frightened about loss of even tithes and offerings coming in during this time. My colleagues who are professors, everything has to go online, so there's fear and anxiety about all that. But what does fear do? Fear shrinks our lives. And if I was doing this on a whiteboard, I'd have a little tiny circle with the word fear into it. Fear constricts us. Fear strangles us. Fear takes the future away from us, because the future just becomes this ominous thing full of scary things that we have absolutely no control over. And when we live our lives controlled by fear, we're basically surrendering our lives to the very things that we can't control. And that's where faith comes in, right? Because if we think back to Joshua, yeah, sure, it was easy because God talked to Joshua, but think of Joshua's context. They'd been wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. Moses, the great leader, the one who had brought the law, he's gone, he's dead. And Joshua has to lead this people into the promised land. And these are the same people, these are the children of the same people who had tried this 40 years before. And because of fear, they shrank back. So God says to Joshua, be strong and courageous. Because courage is the key that unlocks the door to the future. Because it opens us up and reminds us that there are things that we can't control. But just like God promised Joshua that he was going to be present with him, that was the promise, I will be with you. And that's a great biblical theme too. So as persons of faith, we don't have to be afraid of the things that we can't control. Those are always going to be there. And by the way, everybody has there's a huge amount of things that we can't control in our lives. And one of the things that this epidemic has reminded us is of our fragility, our frailness. Instead of our invincibility, it's our vincibility, right? So it helps us to see, what can we actually control? What can we focus on? And courage is what opens that up to the future. Let me just say a couple quick words about this, what I'm thinking about. When I think about courage, I'm thinking about an expanded life. A life that's not just a little circle of the things that I'm afraid of, that I can't control, that makes my life small. Courage opens up the future. And so one of the things in light of that, if we want to live lives of courage, and by the way, I should also say, courage doesn't feel good. Right? We admire courageous people, but courage doesn't feel good when you have to have it, because there's still going to be fear. So don't ever think of courage as the absence of fear. Courage is moving forward despite the fear. And so God says to Joshua, every place you're going to put your feet, I'm giving you this huge land. But you have to walk into it. And so courage is acting despite the sense of fear because we recognize that there's something bigger. So the first thing we want to think about when we think about exercising courage in our lives is simply take right now, commit to a bigger future. Commit to that future of God's dreams. So again, where do you want to be 1 year from now? Where do you want to be 3 years from now? Where do you want to be 10, 25 years from now? Get a big vision and commit to that. And then cultivate the habits, the practices that can help move you there, right? Even Joshua, when God says be strong and courageous, he says, take this book of the law, it's not going to depart from your mouth. So in a sense, Joshua had to exercise the courage to read. He had to cultivate his role as the person that was going to lead God's people, not just in military stuff, because God had all that stuff covered. Joshua had to become the kind of person whose life was going to point ultimately to faithfulness and guide God's people into faithful obedience. So for us, commit to a big future, but then cultivate the practices and skills that are going to move us towards that big future. And then consistency. Work consistently. Set yourself a schedule. Yeah, we're all working at home now. It's easy just to sit around. Set a schedule. Be consistent. Practice consistently. Create. Capture. Use this time to capture big ideas. Capture things that will inspire folks. Create content. Create messages. Create reminders. And then connect. This is a time when we really need to be connecting with people. And yeah, it's different, but we need to connect. Because part of courage is having a community. If you read through Joshua, get a little bit further in that first chapter, you're going to see strong and courageous again, and it's in the context of Joshua in front of all the people. So friends, courage is the key that unlocks the future that God dreams for us. What's courage look like for you right now? Commit to a bigger future. Cultivate the skills and habits that will allow you to move into that. Act consistently, just like Joshua had to move forward. Continue to move forward. Create the content that shares that vision with other people. And connect. Again, I'm Brian Russell. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Drop some things in the comments. Thanks for taking a walk with me. Live by faith, be known by love, and be a voice of hope to others.